So I want to rap to you a little bit about human nature and how the big L left uh, the statists, the communists, the socialists, the Nazis, the fascists, what have you, the collectivists, those who believe in force. Again, you can call it up and down if left and right offends you, but it does have to be labeled in some way. There is one end of thinking that says man is imperfect, man is stupid, man is evil, therefore imperfect, stupid, evil man should be ruled by imperfect, stupid, evil man, because what could possibly go wrong there? Um, so that's one line of thinking. And then you have the other line of thinking that says man is not stupid, man is intelligent, man is inherently good, man is certainly not perfect, but nothing is perfect, and that's a reality. And all we can do as men, as human, sorry, don't want to offend you, as human beings, as creatures, I don't know what the politically correct phrase is for human beings anymore, because I'm sure human being is not even a politically correct phrase anymore. Crazy times we live in. Um, but you have one end that says man is stupid, irresponsible, evil, selfish, and then you have the other end that doesn't negate all of these things. That's the beautiful thing, is that those on the, we'll call it, we will call it right and left. Those on the right say, you are right, big L left. Man can be stupid. Man can be evil. Man can be selfish. But man is inherently, man is inclined, man is more often than not, man is most of the time concerned, morally upright, intelligent, and good and pure. So we have the individualists versus, once again, the tribalists, statists, what have you, SJWs, socialists, communists, etc., etc. The tribalist says that individuals are stupid, they are going to always be evil, and will commit evil unless there is a hierarchy, unless there is a tribe, unless there is a state to punish them. And then, of course, as we discussed before, if the state can't do it, then we'll form a para-state mob rule and we'll punish them ourselves. Meanwhile, the individualist says, you're right, man can be stupid. Man can be evil, man can be selfish. But inherently, we are good and we are intelligent. And this is borne out by fact. This other side of things is simply not borne out by fact. And this is a major issue that far too many on the left, this is a major issue with their thinking. They take one aspect because they are black or white thinker. I mean, we all are black or white thinkers. The really, really intelligent among us, uh, the really intelligent among us are able to go gray and middle and not get stuck so much in black or white. We all will get stuck at certain times to certain degrees in black or white and left or right and not seeing a middle. But the best among us know that there is a middle and know that there is a gray and don't get caught up in moral panics and false dichotomies. And the better of those best even are completely unable, unwilling to ever even go left or right or black or white. They are so wise that everything just fucking floats by them. Wise or stupid, I mean, depending on what you think. But the problem that we have is communicating. The problem we have with communicating is this thought that we have a certain segment of the population that's always looking for, how is this guy going to fuck me over? This guy's definitely going to fuck me over. And another segment of the population that says innocent until proven guilty. This guy might fuck me over, but let's see what his intentions are. As opposed to, this person is definitely going to fuck me over. This person is definitely, wants to lynch black people and suppress women's votes and all this other bullshit. As opposed to everyone else who says, yeah, no, this guy's probably not a racist. Oh, what did he just say? Oh, okay, well, let's look into that a little bit deeper. And the problem comes when we, and the other thing about the individual is that the individualist, I should say, is that they tend to have some belief of something greater than humanity, of something outside of themselves, or at least an understanding that such a force could very well exist. Um, in other words, that it's not only man that has a say in things. This is why, as I discussed in a previous video, this is why people believe in a heaven and a hell. This is why people believe in a divine and an underworld. Because they know those on the right are more pragmatic. This is psychological studies confirm this. Those on the right are more pragmatic and realistic. I'm not painting with a broad brush and saying that every single person who identifies as a Republican or not a Marxist is 100% sane thinker, nor am I saying everyone on the big L left side of things is 100% a fucking idiot, because that would be equally fallacious. Neither of those things are true. What I am saying is that those on the right tend to be more pragmatic. This is borne out by psychological studies. Those on the right tend to be more pragmatic. And so when we hear things like, oh, men are evil and selfish and blah, 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 we go, well, that's not entirely true. You're painting in incredibly broad strokes there. Man can be evil and stupid and selfish. Man can be, but on the whole, inherently, innately, we are not. Innately, we want to stop suffering. Again, humanity as a whole. There are outliers. There are individuals who are born with funky brain chemistry that do not give a fuck when they see a baby crying. But man is inherently good. And we know this because when we see someone cry, we are moved. And the flaw in the big L left way of thinking is that man is imperfect, therefore man has to rule over man. The dissonance that's required for that to make sense is astounding. Astounding. They want control over other people because they don't have control in their own lives. They didn't have control in their lives when they were younger. They had a traumatic experience, and so they never want anyone to suffer, ever, ever, ever. They think they can eradicate human suffering. They think they can eradicate. Listen to the ego in this belief that again, to be incredibly general. I'm not saying everyone on the big L left does this, but I'm saying in the very general sense, people who are more liberal genuinely believe that all human suffering can be eradicated on Earth, on this planet, within this realm of existence, in this sphere of reality, that human suffering can be ended. And those of us who are more realistic say, no, human suffering is always going to be there. Pain will always be here in this world. That's why those on the right tend to believe more often in a divine, because they know full fucking well that you can't end human suffering. And guess what? That is okay, because without human suffering, as awful and as shitty as human suffering is, we wouldn't witness human goodness if there was no human suffering. Think about that. Think about that. If there was no suffering, if there was no pain, if there was no injustice, and I mean true, actual injustice, could there possibly be any goodness? What would we have to gauge it as goodness if there is no badness? How do we gauge justice if there is no injustice? Logically speaking, you can't, because you can't point to something and say, well, this is bad, and then look at something and say, well, this is good. If there was no hurricane, would people be, lining up, giving people their clothes, driving down, helping people out, giving them their food, rescuing them in boats? No, of course not. That'd be fucking weird. If you saw someone rowing a boat down your fucking street that was not flooded, you would send them to a mental hospital. If there was no poverty, if there was no hunger, would people donate cans of food? No, it would make no fucking sense. There's no need to donate food if no one is ever hungry. Yes, suffering is just that, suffering. It's agony, it's pain, it's hurt. I don't like it any more than you do, but it is here. It is a reality of life. Just like differences, cosmetic differences, which I obviously give zero fucks about if I walk around like this. I'm referring to being hairless, not my general attractiveness, so fuck off. No, I don't want there to be suffering, but there is. And people on the big L left live in a fantasy world where they think that they can eradicate it. And that's just not true. Is that a noble goal or thought? I don't really think it is, because it's not based in reality. And I don't think anything that's not realistic can be said to be a noble goal. If your goal is to never be hungry again, ever, 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 what kind of fucking goal is that? You're always going to have hunger arise in your biology. It's always going to happen. So then what are you going to do? You're going to pipe, food directly into your body all the time? And then you're going to have problems, because then your body's going to be full of food all the time, and you're going to need to evacuate, shall we say. You're going to need to void, and you won't be able to. And then you're in some freakish nightmare where you're just like on the toilet all the time with a tube of food or whatever the fuck going into you, and just coming out like, congratulations, you're never hungry anymore, but now what the fuck is your life? I know, it was a really weird example, but that was what I came up with. So yeah, how noble of a goal is it if it can never be achieved, never be attained? A goal is only a good goal if it can be attained, period. Not only attained, but if it reduces suffering. You can have a goal to kill someone. That's not a very good goal. Right? So does not ever being hungry, does that reduce suffering? Again, in the example I gave in that bizarre scenario, I'm sorry, there's a helicopter flying overhead right now. Fucking awesome. In that goal, that silly example of never being hungry, now you're shitting all the time. So now you're not working, because you just have food being piped into you, and you're just... So you're not working, so you're not making money, if you're not able to live a life in a house. And provide for your family, and now your family's suffering because you have a selfish goal of never being hungry ever again. So how good of a goal is it? It's not a very noble goal. If you need to use force to instate your belief system, what you objectively believe to be just and right and pure. I believe it was Pol Pot who part of his ethnic cleansing was people who wore glasses. People who wore glasses were on the list because that was his subjective whim. That somehow those people are inferior. Well, I mean, not somehow. They can't see. They need corrective devices. So apparently they're a drag on society. Thinking that you know best. Thinking that you know best, that your way of thinking is the best. Let me rephrase that. Thinking that yours is the way to live. That everyone should be forced to live this way. That people who don't live that way are uncivilized. That is exactly the kind of thinking that led to slavery. They looked at the Muslim slave traders looked at the African savages, and of course the African tribesmen, wound them up, bound them up, chained them up, what have you, and sold them to the Muslims and to the Englishmen and to the South Americans, what have you, because they said their lives are miserable. Their lives are not worth living in their present state because they are savages. And they will never evolve on their own. So we're going to apply force, and then they will be happy. And they are too stupid to realize that they can't be happy as they are. So we will make them happy by force. It's the same exact way of thinking. We will make them happy by force. You saying that offends people, and that hurts people so much. So we're going to make them happy by jailing you, by murdering you. When often the people that they supposedly represent don't give a fuck. And if they do, guess what? Words are not action. Words are not force. I've never spoken a word to someone that's given them influenza or impoverished or enriched them or broken their jaw. And I know you haven't either, because it is not possible at all. Period. Force is what breaks jaws. Action. Action is what impoverishes or enriches people or makes people sick, going out in the cold with no shoes on. It's pretty fucking arrogant. It's pretty fucking arrogant and self-centered to think that you are going to be the savior. It's pretty fucking arrogant to think that you can protect people from having their feelings hurt. That's not a noble goal, because that can never happen, ever. It actually harms people to not ever face adversity. That's therapy 101, as I believe I discussed in another video. If you just avoid everything that makes you uncomfortable, you're not a very resilient person. You're a fucking weakling, because you've never been tested, ever. If I'm testing my willpower to not have a drink. And I just never walk by liquor stores or watch any television where someone is drinking or go to anyone's house where they have alcohol. How strong is my willpower really? Because I'm sitting in my room where there's no alcohol and I'm never, ever, ever leaving it. I know, that's impossible, but just imagine. This is a little thought experiment. Just imagine. How strong is my willpower if I can't even look at a bottle of alcohol without being triggered? And so you're not strong, and you're not resilient, and you're not doing anyone any favors. Nor is your goal noble. It's not attainable. It's not possible. Suffering will always happen. And that is okay. Deal with it. Get over it. Suffering sucks. It's a fact of life until we graduate out of this cycle or whatever the fuck you believe. Suffering will always happen, period. You can't stop it. What you can do is reduce it. That's what you can do. And you can reduce actual suffering. What's actual suffering? Actual suffering is action, is force. And you don't stop actual suffering, force, with words. You stop it with force, with action. In the same way that words cannot cause suffering, actual suffering, pain, words also cannot stop actual suffering and pain. They can make you feel good, just like they can make you feel bad. They can shake you up a little bit. They can sting, make you uncomfortable. But they cannot affect your state of living. They cannot affect whether or not your foot is broken or whether or not your bank account is cleaned out or whether or not you have AIDS. You can't call someone a fag and suddenly they get AIDS or you get AIDS. If that was the way it worked, a lot of us would be in a lot of trouble. There is suffering, and that is okay. You can never eradicate it, so don't try. And by the same token, there are differences in humanity among human beings, and that is okay. That's beautiful. What do you want us to all be fucking robots? No, you don't. That would suck ass. So once the big L left comes to their senses on this and realizes that, then we can move on and solve actual suffering. And then we can actually talk to each other. Because you can't talk to someone who's not living in reality. And that's not living in reality. It's not. Thinking that you can stop all suffering, or that any mass force of people can stop all suffering ever and stop someone's feelings from getting hurt. Stop someone from being uncomfortable at a word. Stop people having thoughts that they deem impure, obscene, offensive, racist, sexist, or words. That's not a noble goal. And so we can't talk to you until you put that down. Part of the reason we can't even talk to you is because y'all just call us racist and sexist all the time. So the minute y'all put that down, then we can go about ending actual suffering, like, children being raped. The minute y'all put that down, then we can look at the actual causes of actual issues and not just assign everything to racism and sexism. Which actual racism, hatred of another person based on their skin color, or sexism, hatred of a person based on their genitals. Actual cases of that. Very, very, very few. In fact, actual cases of that are zero because, I mean, frankly, you'd have to prove that that was that person's thought and intention. And I mean, I guess unless they tell you, right? So maybe not zero, maybe like 5, right? But it's certainly not fucking rampant. It's certainly not rampant. Anyways, um, oh, and that was the other thing. You know, we talked about that before with humor. Jokes aren't racist because that's a human manifestation that requires actual thought or action. Jokes are make believe. They're make believe. Now, a racist person can tell a joke. It can be a bad taste. Anyways, that's another topic for another time, which I kind of already touched on. I can't remember why I brought that up, and then I just said it. And I feel like I opened up a whole new door. But that wasn't even what I was trying to say. Shit. Oh, well, it's just that um, assigning motives. That was it. Again, I was jumping back to robbery of in-text and context and language itself. Anyways, I've rambled on a bit. Hopefully this video made some sense to someone. Please like, rate, comment, subscribe. Help me out on Patreon or Hatreon if you are at least mildly interested in me. And I can make these videos more regular the more money I get. I hate to be one of those people, but it really is true. Not to say I'm not going to make videos or not to, or I'm not going to try to make videos or try to make better videos, but it's going to help the process. Just saying. Just saying. That's all. Anyways, until next time, speak, listen, understand.